Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. 20 years ago, myself and a few women got together to host the first candlelight vigil. We lived in a world where many Sikhs were struggling with the pain of what happened in '84 at Harmandir Sahib, the subsequent genocide of Sikhs, as well as Air India, the largest terrorist act in Canada. There were deep divisions within the Sikh communities across the country. Some wanted Khalistan, some didn't. Of those that did want Khalistan, some wanted to create it through peaceful means, and others did not. Authorities were gearing up for the Air India trial. For many Canadians, any Sikh wearing a turban was considered guilty of terrorism until proven innocent. They would get to know us and were very surprised that we were nothing like what they had thought we would be. Sikhs and non-Sikhs across the country were struggling with fear, pain, anger, and hate. 20 years ago, my friends and I began the first vigil as a way to help people to start to heal. We created a neutral space where people who didn't get along in their day-to-day lives could come together to grieve and uplift each other. At the time, we were mentored by an elder by the name of Guru Raj Kaur Khalsa. She told us not to give in to the fear, pain, and anger and hate. She pushed us to rise above it. So each year, our vigils were strongly anchored in Chardi Kala, empowered resilience, and Sarvata Bala, the upliftment of all. We refused to embrace victimhood. And by that I mean we refused to use the children, women, and men who had died to justify feeling helpless, to justify being afraid, to justify being angry, to justify being hateful. There is a reason why Gurbani teaches us that krodh, anger, is one of the 5 thieves that steals our soul. So we shared the stories of the Sikh victims who died. We educated people on the facts of what happened. We built relationships with people who thought differently than we did. We also shared the stories of non-Sikh communities who were experiencing genocide at that time and communities who had experienced genocide in the past. We did not just focus on ourselves. And we anchored in Gurbani to guide us through the darkness. Kirtan and Simran was at the heart of each vigil and reminded us that no matter how dark and scary the world became, understanding and applying the teachings in our Gurbani would help us rise above the darkness, help us be in Chardi Kala, the state of empowered resilience. In order to be in Chardi Kala, our heart had to be open. We had to see the humanity in the other person. It was easy to be angry and afraid and to build walls to try to feel safe. It took work to open up and build bridges of understanding, and it took work to focus on Sarvata Bala, the upliftment of all. So why is this relevant today? It's 2018. 84 was 34 years ago. Air India was 33 years ago. It's relevant because all over the world, including Canada and India, hate and intolerance are on the rise. Just like it was in the 80s. Except in 2018, the weapons the world has access to are far more powerful than they were in the 80s. There is once again an increase in the number of people who are fighting discrimination with discrimination, hate with hate, anger with anger. And they are justifying it by saying, now you can understand how we felt when you hurt us. Now it's your turn to feel the pain that we felt. Other people are arming themselves with weapons to protect themselves and their families. In Canada, we have a growing number of people joining the 3%ers, a group that is arming itself to protect Canada from Muslims. They are actively conducting surveillance on mosques and are training themselves on how to use weapons. They exist in many provinces across Canada, including here in British Columbia. In India, the number of extrajudicial killings, torture, and other human rights violations have increased dramatically in recent years. So why is this relevant to us as Sikhs? Because we are a passionate people. We feel very deeply, and our hearts hurt when we see injustice. We are also a people who have a mandate from our gurus that we must stand up and help when we see injustice. But we are also human. This means that we can become afraid, angry, and hateful. We can become trapped in our krodh. And if we try to help from a place of fear, pain, anger, or hate, we can cause great harm. This is why we also have a mandate of nirpal, moving through our fear, nirvair, moving through our anger and hate, nam, fully integrating ourselves into the infinite strength, support, and abundance that is Paramatma. Chardi Kala, practicing empowered resilience. Sarvata Pala, working on the upliftment of all. If we take these mandates from Japji Sahib and Ardas, and we practice them and make them our North Star, if we follow them always, then when we help, we will be able to help uplift the world, as is our mandate as Khalsa. There is a lot of work that needs to be done in order for humanity and the planet, with everything it contains, to prosper. And as Sikhs, we have a responsibility to be actively engaged to create a better world. For some of us, this means that we will teach our children to be engaged with the world and to go out into the world just as Guru Nanak Dev Ji did. We will teach them to see our neighbors as family, just as Bibi Nanki Ji, our first Sikh, did as she taught those early Sikhs. For others, it will mean engaging in social justice seva. We can do this through our professions or our volunteer efforts. There are so many ways, so many levels of how we can engage and show up, as long as we stop comparing ourselves to each other. For some of us, our engagement is going to be through our children and our families. For others, it's going to be through our professions. For others, still through volunteering. You will know your truth, and you will need to own it and show up. We all have time. Simple time, perhaps dinner table conversations with our children. We can start helping by building awareness. We can start helping by teaching about the issues that face Canada. There is an epidemic of suicide in our Indigenous neighbors' communities. Their family too. And while we're busy in our lives of establishing ourselves, they're dying right next door to us. We cannot stay blind because we are Sikhs. It is our mandate to serve and protect and uplift. You will need to figure out what that means, how you will help, what you can offer. But we cannot stay quiet while our neighbors, their children are dying. There are communities where a person is committing suicide every week. Families are being decimated. There is an epidemic of Indigenous women being murdered in our country. And let us be honest, Punjabi men from all backgrounds do engage with prostitutes and are part of the problem. So when will we have the courage to talk about this in our homes, in our communities, so that we are part of the solution and not keeping silent? Being a Sikh, it means we show up in our imperfect glory. We do the best we can, and it matters. Because if each of us puts that drop of water in that bowl, it will overflow because there's so many of us showing up. It's 2018. The world is on fire. We cannot just focus on ourselves, our careers, our financial wealth, our political power. We must serve and show up. And we must remember the teachings of Nirpal, Nirvad, Chardi Kala, Nam, Sarvatapala, because we can go off the rails if we are not grounded in compassion and grounded in dealing with our own fears and hate. So it's 2018. As one of the people who helped start this vigil 20 years ago, I'm going to leave you all with a question. How are you going to choose to show up in your life? Where will you help make a positive impact? Where will you fulfill your mandate of Sarvatapala? For us, every vigil was about reminding ourselves about that. The vigil helped us find our center. It helped us figure out how we were going to give back, because we did have plenty. We had so much. So I will leave this with you, because 2018, this is important. Again, the world is on fire. And whether we will explode as a planet or turn the corner towards prosperity and peace and abundance will depend on who shows up and how each of us shows up. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.